Rolls Royce. And you expect me to be happy on Valentine's Day, Shopware?
I'll
That should be elevated to a crime against humanity.
Wow, suddenly I've become a criminal. Well, if I am, you can call me a smooth criminal. Good morning, Mr. C.
How do you answer that? So,
Good morning, Shopper. Good morning, Cheta. Good morning, Lagos, and happy Valentine's Day. And to everyone out there, I do hope you find love in all its purest expressions.
Oh, thank you, Chata. I'm just gonna direct you to Mr. C. That's how
now
you should be.
singleness, the warrior.
And we've got you. All right, make sure you send your messages in with love. Use the hashtag freshly pressed 981 up on Twitter. You can send WhatsApp messages in 20809 4440981. And you can also go over to youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos to leave a comment. Well, first of all, to watch the live stream and then to leave a comment to let us know what your thoughts are about the stories that we have got coming your way for the next half hour. So we're going to be starting off with this news in from the Guardian newspaper. Nigeria slams Canada over support for hashtag #EndSARS and defends social media regulation. Now, this was on Sunday when we heard from the government, who then went on to slam the government of Canada and Twitter for double standards during the nationwide #EndSARS protests against police brutality. So Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said that the Nigerian government was, and I quote, not gloating over the unfortunate developments in Canada, but we are only calling attention to the double standards involved in the way protesters deemed to be violent are perceived in Nigeria and the West. Because we heard from Canada during the protest, and they condemned Nigeria's the state's use of security operatives to disperse protesters. With Lai Mohammed now saying, "Hey, see what's going on in Canada right now."
Okay, good. So the thing with Lai Mohammed and the rest of his ilk is this is what happens when you live in a lawless society like Nigeria, and then you now try to project your own indeficiencies, your own deficiencies on other people. Now let us look at what happened in Canada, line by line. The US imposed COVID vaccine mandates. So basically, Canadian truckers can no longer move into the US if they've not been double or even triple vaccinated in some cases. Canada also has its own vaccine mandate, and there's a huge anti-vax conspiracy that is swelling. So on January 22nd, a group of truckers protesting the vaccine mandates imposed by another country and their government began to converge in several Canadian provinces. January 22nd, that was what, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. A week later, January 29th, they went and held a rally at Parliament Hill in Ottawa, Canada. Nobody water sprayed them, nobody bothered them, nobody shot at them. Then after they did their rally, they proceeded to begin to blockade provincial capitals all over Canada. So they blockaded Ottawa, they blockaded Toronto, they blockaded Quebec, they Montreal, they blockaded different places. Then when they felt they were not being heard, they started to converge towards this bridge. I think it's the Abraham's Bridge or something like that. That is a major crossing from Canada into the US, essentially disrupting trade. Last Friday, after they had this free reign, of course, the government came out, condemned, the US government came out, condemned, but nobody touched them. Then last Friday, 11th February, note the dates, 22nd January, 11th February. See the gap. You can see I'm stretching my hand.
Only on YouTube.
A judge gave an order declaring the protest illegal and asked the police to break them up. A judge had to give an order. And then it was Saturday morning that the police moved in and ordered the protesters to leave with their vehicles. Many of the vehicles left because now that a judge had given an order, it was illegal. So many of the vehicles left, but some stayed. And it was by Saturday evening that the police began to physically eject them and arrest. By Sunday morning, a few dozen people remained. 12 of the ringleaders had been arrested. And by late Sunday, the only vehicles left were police vehicles. The bridge will be reopened today. We didn't hear that the police shot anybody. We didn't hear that anybody died. We didn't hear asking. So what's life done about? Remember, a judge. So let's go back to EndSARS. Was there any court sitting? No. Let's go back to EndSARS. People were detained without being charged. Some of them were detained for over a year. I mean, there's a difference between civil behavior and animalistic behavior. And we know which one did which.
Mr. C, I'm kind of coming to you for your thoughts. Adding a little to this story because we have a story that kind of joins on to this. It comes in from the Vanguard newspaper. Sarah Tuz Buhari and Lai Mohammed over a failure to publish copy of agreement with Twitter. Now that's the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, which also and the in the suit they also went on to file a suit regarding the failure to publish the details of the terms and conditions of any such agreement. And the suit, which was filed last Friday at the Federal High Court in Lagos, Sarah asked the court to direct and compel President Buhari and Alhaji Lai Mohammed to release and widely publish copy of the agreement with Twitter and the terms and conditions of any such agreement, arguing that it is in the interest of justice to grant this application, that it would enable Nigerians to scrutinize it, seek legal remedies as appropriate, and ensure that the conditions for lifting the suspension of Twitter are not used as pretext to suppress legitimate discourse. Because, of course, we did hear from the government when they finally reopened the Twitter streets, saying that everything they had asked for had been acceded to. And Mr. C, from your face, I see that you may have a slight issue with this. Tell us your thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Shopper. Now, a few months ago, the Minister for Information, Mr. Lai Mohammed,
Him again.
Yes, Cheta.
suggested or informed Nigerians that an agreement had been reached with Twitter, and that as part of the agreement, they would open an office, they would abide, they would incorporate a company in Nigeria, blah, blah, blah.
All the
blah,
bells and whistles.
Now, it's important to state this for the benefit of our listeners. Twitter is a publicly quoted company in America. If they enter into such agreements with any government,
They have a duty to report.
by the rules and regulations of the American Stock Exchange, the exchange they're listed on, they must disclose that information and provide copies of that agreement.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Have we seen any?
Eh?
Shopper,
You have to ask the questions,
Shopper,
people.
they've not even made an announcement. So this agreement is in Mr. Lai Mohammed's mind, his imagination, his fancy. And Sarah, to my mind, is just fulfilling all righteousness. They cannot produce an agreement because none was ever signed. Now,
So if that's the case, then what do you expect to see happen?
We know that Lai lied. Nothing will happen.
so beyond that, okay, Twitter was supposed to set up an office. Has the office been set up?
Not that we know of yet.
Because if Twitter opens an office in any country, they will make it news. So well, in an ideal situation, in an ideal climate, it would be extremely baffling that a minister would publicly lie and still be in office. But Nigeria is an aberration.
Nigeria is a special case.
So mark my words, nothing will come out of this case. There's no agreement to produce. They cannot conjure an agreement.
Well, you've heard it from the analysts, but now we'd like to hear from you. Use the hashtag freshlypressed981 on Twitter. Send your messages in up on our YouTube live stream as well. Let us know what you have to say. Say something up on youtube.com/smooth981fm. And going over to WhatsApp now, 0809 440 981. We've got this message in from Ike, who says, why are we even dignifying lie, spelled the English way? Mohammed, senseless talk with such excellent analysis. Well, you need to get your analysis every single day, 7:30 to 8 o'clock right here on Smooth
He happens
Breakfast.
to be a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So whether we like it or not, he's a public figure. So
Emeka from Ikeja says, Cheta, thank you for your analysis. But along the timeline, did the truckers loot and maim? That tactic could only hold on 1 second. 1 second, Cheta. Let me finish this. That tactic could only have worked in Canada, but not in Nigeria. The protest here was politicized, says Emeka. Arrowheads were known supporters of the opposition.
I think it's important that Emeka goes back and look at the entire timeline of what happened in NSAS again. The people who began to become violent in NSAS, and that started on October 17th, 2020, were people who were ferried about in Lagos here in Lagbot, and there were videos in Abuja in government vehicles. And then the mass looting and began on October 23 when warehouses with COVID positives were looted.
Yeah.
We must be very, I mean, these are things that are matter of public record. So we can't change history in the middle of history.
Mm. Especially with video footage. From who is this? Tajuddin, I think it is. Tajuddin says, Chetesson is still in prison without trial and many dead without a court's pronouncements. While Tony says, Lai Mohammed was waiting for Canada to make a mistake, and when they didn't, he went ahead to slam them. We all saw the professionalism employed by the Canadian police. We've got this message in from Yinka who says, if a judge had ruled that NSAR's protest is illegal, do you think the protest would have ended? In the end, rather than go to court, a curfew was declared. Understanding the sorts of system we have, why didn't the protesters just leave? Then maybe re-strategize the protests, asks Yinka. Well, we do need to move on. So let's take a look at this article in from the Premium Times. Lagos government arrests owner of collapsed building, says commissioner. Now, this is the state commissioner for physical planning and urban development, Idris Salako, who said that preliminary findings indicated that the site, which was the three-story building under construction that collapsed at number 16 in Onike area of Lagos on Saturday, preliminary findings indicated that it had been sealed off twice by the Lagos State Building Control Agency in 2021 for non-compliance with building regulations, after which the site was abandoned. However, the developer later broke the government seal, sneaked into the site, and recommenced construction without official authorization. And then we found ourselves again at Saturday afternoon with yet another building collapse. Chata, I'm coming to you for this story. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, at least 4 people have been confirmed dead from this building collapse at Akombi Crescent. God rest the dead. So building collapses are a fairly common phenomenon in Lagos. In August last year, there was a study by the TAG Climate Africa Institute for Climate Change in South Africa, and they reported that 115 mostly residential buildings collapsed in Lagos between 2005 and 2016. That's essentially 10 building collapses a year. I mean, that's too many. We see these things where substandard building is done everywhere, and very importantly, people are not brought to book. Arresting the owner of this building, fair game, he should be prosecuted and the book thrown at him. The developer as well should be prosecuted, everybody down the chain. And then the government people, the regulators who removed their eye from it should also be prosecuted. And this brings us back to the Alexander Rhodes collapse from last year, that the famous or infamous Alexander Rhodes collapse.
Which led to the death of at least 40 people.
Yeah, the developer died in that. But what about the people who removed their eye when he moved it from allegedly from 5 floors to 15 floors and then to 21 floors? Has anything happened to them? No. So we can't be we can't say, oh, we just are we essentially throw somebody to the dogs, and then other people who have been flouting regulations, even on the regulatory side of it, are let to go. Nigeria's home ownership rate, because this is where we stand in a problem. Our home ownership rate is about 25%. It's lower than Indonesia, Kenya, South Africa. Our population has been growing, but as of 91, we had a housing deficit of 7 million units. Now it is estimated to be somewhere between 17 and 22 million housing units. This means that we need to build, if we want to cover this housing deficit, we need to build 700,000 houses per year for the next 20 years in this country. Do you know how many we build on average per year?
How many?
Less than 100,000.
Well,
So we actually need to scale up. But we cannot afford to scale up if we don't put strong enforcement of regulations in place. And that is the big problem we have. Nigeria is chock full of laws. New laws, we don't need new laws in many
we
cases.
need enforcement.
We need enforcement of existing laws.
Well, anyway, because right now it has gotten to the stage where people are afraid to walk past a tall building. So something needs to be done. All right, let's move on now. We've got this article in from hold on one second. We have got where did I go? Oh, there we go. So we have this article in from the Vanguard newspaper. No acceptance of anonymous monetary contributions if Electoral Act Amendment Bill gets signed. Mr. C, you know I'm going to be asking for your opinion on this. So very quickly, let me just give you a brief background into the story. So if the re-amended 2010 Electoral Act Amendment Bill of 2022 is signed into law, all the political parties presenting candidates for the presidential and general elections will be mandated to give the Independent National Electoral Commission a detailed annual statement of their assets and liabilities, of sources of funds and other assets. And this goes into all the different clauses of the document and really just gives us um, a detailed view as to what we could expect. So, Mr. C, when you look at this, what would you say? How would you say this would look for the future of our elections?
Okay, sure. Well, thanks. So looking at this story,
Mhm.
some of these provisions are not new. They've always been in previous versions of the Electoral Act. So, for example, the political parties are supposed to give an account of their income and expenditure. We started this version of democracy or this round of democracy in 1999.
Till date, have we seen
I
any
don't
of this?
I don't recall any of the parties doing this. I stand to be corrected. Now, what are some of these things they're saying? That specifically section 86 section 86 of the proposed act says that the party shall forward to INEC a statement of its expenditure in hard and soft copies. How many of these parties actually keep proper and detailed records? It's a big question. So, what will they be sending? Will they be sending complete records
Mm.
or records just to be seen to be fulfilling the provisions of the law? Now, we go further. They say that any official of the party who contravenes this provision is liable to a fine of 1 million or imprisonment for 6 months or both.
That's quite um.
A fine of 1 million is neither here nor
That's
there.
a bit. That's a slap on the wrist.
Thank you.
Well, is it a slap? Is it even a tap?
Now, it goes further. Now, this has to do with funding. They say that no individual person can donate more than 50 million naira to any political party, any political candidate. And that if you do that, you're liable to pay a fine of 1% of what you donated of the 50 million, which is 500,000, or a term of no more than 12 months. Now,
How does this help?
it's not even realistic because in previous elections, one of our big daddies in Nigerian society has been known to give billions of naira to candidates from both
I
parties.
feel like if you can give billions, you can afford that 1%.
No, no. So the thing is, he's already used to giving billions. Why is he going to come down to 50 million?
Mm.
And what are the checks and balances put in place to ensure that it's only 50 million? Then they go further and say that no political party should retain funds sent to it from abroad. No political party should have assets outside Nigeria. Now, it's a very big,
Okay, now, Mr. C, here's the thing. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut you off here, but if this is this Electoral Act Amendment Bill fit for 2022?
it's okay. So that's an interesting question. It's fit for the purpose of going through the motions, but really if it's to enhance and
For
improve the
the
electoral,
reality of 2022 and 2023,
the,
more
pro- the
importantly.
provisions are not realistic, but they're going through the motions and they will pass it.
How do you feel about this? Lagos, Nigeria, wherever it is in the world you are listening to us from, send your messages in. Go over to youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. We are streaming live there. Leave your comments, say something. And Odini says up on YouTube, does that 100,000 okay, Odini talking about the housing story, does that 100,000 include affordable houses that we're building every year? There are abandoned buildings scattered around Lagos because they are overpriced. And boy, sometimes in certain parts of Lagos, you'll just drive by and you're like, are the lights on anywhere? We've got more of your messages going over to WhatsApp. We've got this one in from, who is this? Delewat, who says, Lagos arrests owner of collapsed Yaba building. Now, today, said in bold and capital letters, no less. Frank from Burgess says, please, how do you manage to read and analyze the news daily and still keep your sanity? Whilst Dikpo says that the building collapse issue is surrounded by a myriad of problems which are related to the present economic situation. Construction costs have escalated in the last few years in a declining economy. The quality of building materials has also declined from cement to steel, saying the best way to address this issue is first to tackle the manufacturers of inferior building materials. Whilst Yinka says, I understand Mr. C's point, but we must also admit that our elections are expensive. Something needs to be done about it. Maybe we can stop vote buying. Oh, what a fantastic segue into our next story coming in from the Vanguard newspaper. Vote buying and
I
selling
wanted to answer the person that's
characterized.
asked how we can keep our sanity.
Mhm.
Who said we're safe?
Moving
Chatter,
on,
chatter.
Guardian newspaper. Vote buying and selling characterized FCT poll. This, according to the Center for Democracy and Development, which said that Saturday's Federal Capital Territory area council polls witnessed massive amounts of vote buying by politicians who are desperate to win. So we heard from a senior program officer at the CDD, Mr. Austin Agbe, who said during a news conference on Sunday in Abuja that it observed that the center observed all sorts of shenanigans. Other things apart from the very, very obvious vote buying, there was also low voter turnout in one
The
polling
story of
station, no voter
Yeah, the
turnout.
story of Nigeria. That was a polling station in Wuse too, which is a distinctly middle class
I
area,
was about to
and
say,
that was
yes.
and for me that was the big takeaway from this whole thing. Um, I admire Idiot and Austin, the guys at CGG, and then Samson at Yaga. They try. Because me, I've more or less given up on Nigerian elections as it were. Those of us in the middle chattering classes, we complain a lot, but on election day, Sunday, someone be too hot, we won't go out to vote. And we turn around and start complaining when the poor people who can't see who can't see any income line up, collect money, and then sell their votes in return. We must have a little bit of empathy and put ourselves in their shoes a bit. As per the NBS, Nigeria's official statistics organization, the median income in this country is 137,400 naira per year. That is just over 11,000 naira per month. That is what the average Nigerian earns. For a person, for someone who earns that 1,200 naira
It is a lot
given
of
at the
money.
polling booth, it's a lot. He will sell that vote. It makes no economic sense for him to hold on to that vote. We must put that in context. Having said that, a project that we worked on back in
Mhm.
2019, which funny enough was in conjunction with the same CDD, actually shows that you can map poverty in this country by the amount that votes are sold for.
Well, that's
So
an interesting
yeah,
idea. Okay,
so you
go on.
can so by looking at how much it costs to buy a vote in a polling unit, you find that it's the most expensive place to buy a vote is in Lagos. And then by the time you get to Kano, in some polling units in Kano, you could buy a vote for as low as 500. Yes,
In Quara,
Mhm.
20, circa 2015,
you were selling votes.
votes were gotten for as low as 15 naira.
Wow.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, you don't want to talk about in Auchi.
There is
Well,
something wrong
so
with this situation.
essentially, the point I'm trying to make is the system isn't fit for purpose. One. Number two, our governments are in many respects losing legitimacy because people are logging out.
Just when we look at this, for some people, this would seem like an insurmountable obstacle. But
No,
if
it
you
is
had
not
a,
insurmountable.
Mhm. So that's where
Yeah,
my question is going.
what I would tell, so and I spoke at the EIE NGO did a session last Thursday, and I
Mhm.
was a speaker there, and I'll repeat what I said then. We need to focus, and I've said it here for 10 years now. We need to focus on legislative elections because it is easier. You see, with legislative elections, it's a
Mhm.
smaller, it's a narrower pool you're fighting for. It's just people in your senatorial districts. Get the right kind of people in legislative positions so that we can change the system. Because a huge part of the problem is the system.
All right. We don't have too much time, so I would like to go over to this next story in from the Punch newspaper. Federal government sets up committee to check strike and brain drain in the sector. This, according to the chief medical director of the Federal Medical Center in Abuja, Professor Saad Ahmed. He said that the issue of brain drain is of serious concern, and I can tell you that the government has already set up a committee at the moment on health sector reform to look at the health sector to see areas where they need to reform in order to stop restiveness and also the brain drain that we currently have.
The journalists are
Mr.
lazy, sure.
Mr. C, I have to ask, even just from a layman's perspective, it seems pretty simple to see the causes of the brain drain and strikes, but maybe I'm not seeing something. What do you see?
Chopper, these guys are jokers. Now, I'm going to give you some shocking facts. 4,528 Nigerian trained doctors moved to the UK between 2015 and July 2021. Now hold that number. 15,049 nurses moved, Nigerian trained nurses
Mhm.
moved between March 2017 and March 2021 to the UK. Do you need a committee set up to tell you why they moved? You don't pay salaries on time. The salaries are a joke.
You're trying to outlaw strikes?
The working condition, you're trying to outlaw strike, thank you.
Doctors have become tailors and sew clothes for ministers.
Yes, the working conditions are deplorable. You don't have the right equipping, you don't have the right provision of drugs. The standard of life is next to zero, it's abysmally low. And then you want to now waste taxpayers' money to gather people together to sit down and come up with what I've just said. We're not serious.
In short, for me, the journalists are lazy. They should have asked Professor Saad when he's leaving.
So,
Mr. C, back to you.
so, so very quickly, right? They know what they need to do. They're just playing to the gallery and wasting everyone's time. The people who are choosing to emigrate to the US, to Canada, to UK, and the numbers I gave were just for the UK. In over 6 years, 9,000 Nigerian nurses have been lost to countries outside the UK. Now, it's
Saudi Arabia came and were chattering them the other time.
Wow, yes.
so the truth of the matter is, if the working conditions are right, the pay is right, they will stay. It's not rocket science. But when these things do not happen, we're not even talking about insecurity, the poor naira value compared to the US dollar or the pound sterling. We haven't even got into that. What are the prospects for a freshly trained Nigerian doctor or nurse who elects to remain in Nigeria for the next 10 to 15 years?
And can I also add something to this conversation? I mean, we have run out of time, but very quickly, when we also talk about medical professionals operating within Nigeria and the brain drain in that sector, a lot of times, the focus is on pay, the focus is on working conditions, but there's also another aspect to this, which medical professionals have spoken about as well, which is they are tired of seeing lives unnecessarily lost, lives that they could have saved if they just had the right equipment, something, a basic equipment. And a lot of them say, a lot of doctors and a lot of nurses say that.
No, I spoke to
There's
that
that.
earlier. I spoke to that earlier, and it's not going to change for now.
Can I have the last word? My brother's class from Uniben that graduated, I forgot was here. Only one of them is left in Nigeria. And
My
he's not
goodness,
a
how
doc-
many?
I think there were 98 of them that graduated. He's not a doctor anymore. He's a politician.
There you have it. On that note, we end the show and the conversation. Make sure you follow our analysts up on social media because you need to get some of that insight on whatever is going on. You can find Mr. C on Instagram and on Twitter. On Instagram, he's French at Monsieur C with a triple E, and on Twitter, he is at the Mr. C with two E's. You can find Cheta at Chickster anywhere you go. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me for today's episode of Freshly Pressed, and thank you for sending your messages in across all the platforms. Coming up, Lagos, you will be talking. That is at 8:10.
Point one. Why you not working now?
Oh,